Good evening. So, as I said in my social medias and accounts, that I will be doing a live unboxing for this that arrived in the mail. Well, I'm not sure when it arrived exactly. I was expecting it to be arriving latest by yesterday. Uh, no, actually a few days. Monday actually. But this will be a special occasion, rare occasion that I actually buy a physical RPG product. Uh, and once in a while have some bragging rights just to say, hey, I got this thing. Uh, this is on Facebook, the Facebook page. I'm thinking that I might as well make it a very special video for the YouTube channel. But obviously, I'll be uploading this video on YouTube much later on. So off we go to do the unboxing, and as all good unboxing requires, the package and a scissor in this case, which I don't have a knife. Uh, and the best part is that if this actually doesn't turn out to be the Alternity Core Rulebook that I ordered from, then I'm not exactly sure what's going to be in this package. But unboxing being unboxings, they have that eventuality is supposed to be there. And it turns out I don't even need a scissor. I just need to just pull it where it says open. That's it. Going to be enough to get the whole thing through. Alright, so this tape. And this was actually sent. Well, it's sent from the distribution area in the UK, and then once it reaches Malaysia, it actually goes through the post Malaysia system, or at least that's the delivery partner that the shop that I will be talking about have decided. So the moment of truth is pretty much here, and it's 3, 2, 1, and there it is. The Alternity Core Rulebook that I ordered sometime, I think it was late November, and it's finally here. It's shrink wrap. I don't see there to be any real damages through the journey. There is no foam within the package itself, so it was susceptible to damage. And if there was any I could say that I wanted to look at, I think things pretty came out, intact, as it were, with the shrink wrap on. And the first impression that I'm gonna say, looking at this right now, is actually much smaller than I expected. Like even this is a scale, which is not a real scale, but let's just take, let's say, a sample quick start rules printed here. And if you're talking about something much smaller here, if I have to go as far as using a D&D book, you have the comparison here. So it's actually pretty small for what you expect for a full system core rules. So I don't believe there's actually I okay, so maybe I'll just talk a little bit about where I got this from. I didn't get this exactly from Sasquatch Games itself, Sasquatch Studios. I didn't get this exactly from the Sasquatch website. I actually got through this from a website called shopformalaysia.com, I believe. Yes. If I'm not mistaken, it probably is a part of a larger distribution or retail company, but the Shop for Malaysia website in particular deals, probably are the items that they shop that ships directly to Malaysia, and also in Malaysian, and the prices are displayed in Malaysian ringgit. So this, if you've been watching my channel and you've been following my quick starter series, you will know that I did an alternate quick start. I ran the alternate quick start sometime this year. I believe it was either sometime in June or July, and you might know of my preferences with the alternative rule set, and it's something that I've been thinking of going into a bit more in depth. And the thing is, the moment I saw, when I was searching through Shop for Malaysia, and when I saw this for sale, it was actually at a very affordable price. I think much cheaper than what you pay for a regular D&D product. It was going at, I paid 81 ringgit and 40 cents. Not shipping was free, and it also delivers worldwide. So yeah, 80 ringgit for a RPG product. it's quite a steal, I would say. I mean, you would typically expect to pay more than at least 100 for a physical product, and in most cases, and given the exchange rate, it's usually 100 ringgit as well for a PDF on drive-through if it's priced at more than $20. So all right, so that's all. That's what it looks like from the onset. Let's this is not going to be that short unboxing video. Because we have to open it up and see what's inside. And so I was just thinking, like, when was the last time I did a unboxing segment? And going back onto my Instagram, I did notice that the last time I did an actual unboxing was when I bought the Cubicle 7 Lone Wolf adventure game. I believe that was more intended as a starter product before they introduced more items into the main line. But yeah, that was besides D&D, which I had to buy for various reasons. Not always for the reasons to run them. But besides D&D, that was probably my last physical product that I bought willingly and with the intended commitment to get into the game more thoroughly. And since then, my Lone Wolf game hasn't exactly seen use since I ran it with my group. And it's probably one of my regretted purchases, but it's something that I intend to fix at some point, because the Lone Wolf setting itself it's one of those that holds quite dear to my heart, and I intend to make the best use out of it. Alright, so the shrink wrap's off, so let's just have a look. I have to say, it's a bit refreshing to hold this in have a much smaller book compared to your regular D&D book. Makes it much easier to carry, during commutes, especially when I'm taking trains to places. It makes for easier reading to carry around and doesn't draw as much as attention with the stuff that I carry on when I'm reading D&D books. So let's just have a look. Let's just try to open some random pages. So over here we have the gear page. I would have liked to really show you. I would have really loved to do a flip through on this, but I don't think it's possible given this angle. If I got myself a proper webcam, that might be a bit feasible. But let's just try anyway. Let's just see if this is something that I can do in the long term. It's a nice hardcover, so it's definitely interesting. So let me just have a look if we can do a proper flip through. That. You know what? I'm just gonna flip through to areas that is gonna interest me and I think will interest you, and I'm just gonna show it to that. And obviously the first and some of the things that I think not a lot of people regularly do or regularly checked is actually the credits and the table content, because they want to get into the good stuff. But I think it's actually more important to have a good breakdown or an idea of what you're getting in the book, and the best way to do that is actually through the table of contents and the credits, obviously, because you want to thank the people who wrote this and put effort and time to make this. So credits page is obviously on page 2, and we have here system design by Richard Baker, David Noonan, and Steven Schubert, who form the basis of the Alternity, probably also Sasquatch Games itself. Writing is done by Richard Baker and David Noonan. Development by Steven Schubert. Editing by Stacy Jansen. Creative direction by Richard Baker. Cover illustration by Klaus Pilon. That's cover illustration. Cover design is Corey McCorrack, and concept artist is Robergato Ayanag. Concept artist, okay. Interior illustrators is Lucas Durham, Justin Mayhew, Klaus Pilon, Marcel Mercado, Claudio Pozaz, and Lee Smith. Art direction by Richard Baker. Production specialist Nisa McCormack. This game exists today because of 703 generous backers who supported our 2017 crowdfunding campaign. Thank you to each and every one of them. So there is that. So yeah, so Sasquatch Games is a crowdfunded by Kickstarter, I believe, that brought this game. I'm actually quite surprised that there was only 703 backers to actually get this product through. I expected a lot more backers, but um, you know, this is not particularly a game that is very well known, but I think has some at least the predecessor version of Alternity has some historical value in terms of making what D&D is today, especially the designers Richard Baker, David Noonan, and I believe Steven Schubert were all former Wizards of the Coast employees who were part of the development and design of Dungeons and Dragons 3rd edition. Alright, so table of contents, page 3, all within a single page, that's all there. We have 8 chapters. We have an introduction chapter, then we have numbered chapters from 1 to 8. We have a couple of appendices, appendix 1, appendix 2. We have an index and character sheet, and it's gonna be let's have a look at the character sheet first. It's the last page, because if the size of this book is an indication, we have a very small character sheet. Although typically the idea would be that and it's only a 1-page character sheet to be in fact. The flip over page up beyond that is actually the last section of it. So that's actually the character sheet. It's a single page character sheet, small. But if you've played Alternity, you know it's actually a very compact character sheet. Like in because it being a skill-based system, you can see that the skills tables are freaking enormous, or freaking long at least. Alright, so yeah, let's go back to the table of contents. So introductions about role-playing games, how to use this book, system basics, choosing your future, how the game works, your alternative character creation, skills and talents, gear, combat and challenges, running the game, creating adventures, aliens and adversaries. And looking at the page count, we have 287 pages. This is 287 pages thick. Let's just see any flip through. Introductions. Alright, so I guess given the size so far, it actually kind of makes sense that everything has to be in a single column layout. There's really no reason why they should do a 2-column split layout for each page, because it's just gonna make the words even smaller. And yeah, so just going through. Although that actually, because of the single column layout, they actually leaves a lot of space for sidebars and margins, and these are the margins that I noted in my quick starter video as well, that I really appreciate when designers give their own like designer notes, designer tips or guidelines as you read through the rules. So there's the difficulty scales, the unique alternative system of how they utilize the D20 scale of difficulty and how it can be modified through dice, and also the different types of successes, the degrees of success levels as they call it. Alright, and this is actually interesting because we are still at the introduction chapter, but they've already started introducing things like they call big concepts, which is, I think, is very interesting, because this is actually you could say this is pretty much the quick starter introduction that was given. The introduction of the rules that was actually given in the quick start version of Alternity. So this is I think this is a very good idea in the sense that it gives, it gives a quick, executive summary of what the rules really are, that sort of thing. Oh, and if you see, we have a sample character sheet. I think this is a really nice touch. How the character sheet is filled, and seeing where the numbers go and that sort of thing. Let's try to look for some art, and as I said, I was also looking for some art. There's art for character creation. I did make a comment about the art being a bit more abstract in the quick starter version, at least the art that was used there. I'm not sure if this style is going to be consistent, this tone is going to be consistent throughout the book. But this one definitely looks, interestingly generic. I mean, it is a generic system after all. So what else do you expect? Okay, so we have character concepts first. So there is, I think this guys, uh, yeah. So there's obviously the steps. There are 9 steps that come here. 9 steps outlined here. Something that may be overlooked at times, especially in D&D. But if you pay attention to D&D, the player's handbook as well, player creation guidelines are actually provided. It's just that it's probably harder to find than you think. So it's good to be for that to be on the first page, and outlines in such a very clear and clean manner that you don't have to really look for it in a sense. So first we start with concept, then we have the ability scores, then your species, then your archetype, or go freeform, which is an option. Interesting. I wasn't expecting the freeform option for choosing archetype, which is class. Select your talents, reassign your skill points, get your gear, put your finishing touches, initiative, durability, run it all past your GM, and we are ready for adventure. Right? That's great. Oh, this is actually an interesting thing. I didn't notice this. We have a quote from Josh Whedon, of all people. I wasn't expecting Josh Whedon to have some sort of presence here. The thing about a hero is even when it doesn't look like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, he's going to keep digging. He's going to keep trying to do right and make up for what's gone before, just because that's who he is. Josh Whedon right there, top quote. Wow. I'm not exactly sure what's his involvement with the book or with Sasquatch Games, but given his gaming connections, I wouldn't be surprised. It's actually a shame that he didn't get to demonstrate this game back when he was with Geek and Sundry until the Titan's Grave debacle started happening. But I would definitely love to see one of the streamers back then trying to promote Alternity, and I think it would have opened up some minds and eyes if the terminal audience, or at least the mass audience, was able to actually have a glance at it. Okay, concept. Okay, focus on the past and the present. All right. Yeah, and this is something also that I think is a advancement, something that D&D should have adopted long time ago, but it's good to see here. This is the one. GMs, help your players out. This is just a sidebar, but it's simple GMing advice. Like, GMs are also part of the character creation process, which is not explicitly stated in the player's handbook, but it is a two-way it requires two-way communication thing. And they even talk about like what are the things that the DMs can provide before characters embark on creating characters. Yeah, so I believe I might have made some comments about the general direction in how the quick start talks gives advice even in the quick start at the level of a quick start, because quick starts are meant to sell the game and really just show off the shining bits and pieces of the game. But in the alternate quick start, I believe they actually even took some spaces out just to really give a lot of support and advice for the GM who's running it. So I really appreciated it, and I guess that comes with this is not writing good. This is not being able to write good rules. This is being able to think of how useful the rule book is going to be for people who play the game. All right, so species, we have humans, we have androids, we have Brief, so we are introduced to some aliens. Now, I've not played the previous edition of Alternate, so I'm obviously not going to be able to recognize any of the custom alien races that was introduced in Alternate. So yeah, so it's going to be a whole lot of discovery here. This is called the Nash, I believe. Yeah, some interesting art. I guess the last time I got myself into a sci-fi role-playing system was probably D20 Future. Back in the D29 days, and they had a more distinct comic art style. So to see Alternity adopting something like this, yeah, something to get used to, I guess. All right, so we have the Nash, we have the Heion, but the Heion has no art for that. So which, it's kind of. At least they have a whole paragraph on description and physiology. Don't know if you can see that. That's right there. Physiology, something that also is often overlooked when reading the Player's Handbook, although it's there, but nobody really cares. So we have archetypes. Archetypes. We have the battler, we have the expert, we have the leader, the striker, the survivor, and we have the freeform characters. We have the freeform character rules. So I think this is going to be very interesting to study on. If I, when I decide to do a full-on study of the alternative rules, which is hopefully part of the plan for 2020. And we get the talents, we have the skills, and I hope they should tell you the total number of skills, because I blasted the math it came along the numbers of like 30 something. Alright, I'm not seeing them mentioning the number of skills they are. Oh, okay, you can find detailed description of each skill in chapter 3. So this is still in the character creation chapter, so yeah, there's no reason to really talk about skills in detail just yet. Speed, durability. So yeah, this is the examination of the character sheet. They break down the character sheets, what they mean. But I suspect most of it, most of the actual explanation of what the mechanics are explained in the rules would be within the respective rule chapters. Okay, coming to chapter 3, skills and talents. Again, another chapter cover. Again, this doesn't look similar to the abstract art style that was used in the quick start, but I like it as an identifier. And certainly, it looking so generic, in this case, it certainly appeals to the idea that use this system to imagine whatever you want, and these are just like a little bit of field of imagination to see where you want to take them with. So skills and talents, we have choosing skills, choosing talents, anatomy of a skill check. Wow. All right, I don't think this was provided. I think a somewhat summarized version was actually provided in a quick start, because I don't remember it being as detailed as this one. But the skill check is actually the heart, and I would say the heart of the engine of the alternative system, and it definitely deserves a lot more attention to really explain, or at least expand on what is the intent of the designers when doing this. And and just by saying that, they have already sections like defining failure and success, and fail forward but make it sting. Yeah, this is going to be a very good case study in a way, in one of the recent discussions I've been having with another RPG group. Yeah, this is going to be very, very interesting. All right, so here we have all the skills in Alternity. Somehow managed to fit within the page, and I think that intentionally so is a very, very good idea. Even the page number of where the descriptions of those skills are at is also much appreciated, because less flipping is always much better. And type and notes, and this is actually going to be super useful for me when I start making cheat sheets for this rule set. I love making cheat sheets. I love making Excel tables of rules, and D&D definitely benefits when you have an Excel table, especially when it comes to things like spells and monsters, magic items. It makes prep so much more easier, and it's always great to see tables in an RPG book, because that basically just means that you just have to copy and paste and just put it over there. Although it but it typically involves a huge amount of data entry. But I don't really complain about doing that, because I'm still doing that right now. Right, so yeah, every skill, if they can. If there was one thing that works to the detriment of the alternative system is that some skills are more important than others, but I don't think it can be helped in that sense, uh, because yeah, some skills in the future would definitely be more important than others in some cases. All right. Uh, if I'm just had to pick anything from the skill descriptions, I was hoping they would explain something like what happens if you get an average success, a stellar success, an extraordinary success, which I'm not seeing yet. Just from a brief glance at what the skill entries are look like in description. There's nothing there that indicates anything about how to adjudicate for different degrees of success. But they do have a section about your typical modifiers, like what are the typical modifiers that would affect the difficulty level, difficulty scale of those skills. I would definitely have liked to see more success related or failure related entry descriptions, and I think that was something that was uh, adopted in 3.5 in the 3 third edition player's handbook for Dungeons and Dragons, and that was something I think that has been really missing out in the later editions, when they don't really give you an idea or indication of what happens when you succeed and what happens when you fail, and it's a bit of a shame that I don't see that idea being carried over to Alternity, by the people who introduced that idea to Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, but I think there has to be a upside to it, to why they didn't choose to do that. But obviously that involves actual reading, which I won't be doing in this unboxing video. Let's just flip through and let's just get to the point. So chapter 3, I believe, was most likely going to be the thickest chapter, and then we are now just getting into talents. Again, talent tables, always the best thing to see. I'm not sure if this is the comprehensive one, but if it was actually a little smaller than expected. But yeah, I guess skills and talents is really the heart and soul of the Alternity character, and therefore it becomes the entirety of the system. So let's just skip ahead. Let's go to chapter 4. We're talking about gear. Alright, chapter 4 with gear. Pretty decent imagination of a cyberpunk. Although I'm not exactly sure if the Alternity is really able to cater for a full-on cyberpunk setting. It's still, maybe after reading I'll change my mind. But as of right now, Alternity still gives me that idea that it's actually meant for more space sci-fi rather than cyberpunk sci-fi. But yeah, hopefully the book is going to change my mind for that, because I would really like to have a more solid system to run a cyberpunk game. And I have done Exxon Punk. That's one. I was hoping to do Eclipse Phase, which is not exactly cyberpunk, but it's some from at least a subgenre of cyberpunk. And I'm definitely trying to look for something that really accentuates the flavor of cyberpunk. And my taste of cyberpunk is probably much different from people who are actually immersed in the literature of cyberpunk. So yeah, I'm definitely looking for a system that can do cyberpunk pretty well. Alright, so quick and easy, pay as you go, standard issue. I believe, okay, maybe there was the age system, but the typical approach when it comes to handling currency and being able to buy certain things in more modern to future settings and rules is usually not to actually track dollar and cents, but to actually use some sort of abstract skill check to represent your ability to buy. Yeah, that was actually done in the Expanse Quick Start recently that I ran. So I guess the thing here is that they're actually providing you with options, maybe quick start and pay as you go. Although I do see some figures, some currency figures there, like $4 and $500 and $4,000. So maybe Alternatively goes for the more traditional route of dollars and cents. Alright, so restriction levels, right? So restriction levels is something that you would probably be familiar with if you were running, if you had run or at least played or read D20, the D20 series of modern, future, past. Alright, we have the weapons. So weapons, uh, when I was doing when I ran the quick start for Alternity, weapons was actually the weapon options that was available was actually something that was not fully utilized by my players because I guess it was a little bit too complicated to explain on the table. But it's definitely something that I would have liked to see in action a bit more in the hands of players because we have things like accurate ammo loadout, AP, armor piercing, auto fire improve, blast, bleed. You know, there's a lot of properties that comes from the players, that comes with weapons as well, which I think adds a little bit more flavor to combat. And combat, oddly enough, turns out to want to be one of the feedback that I got from when I ran the quick start was actually turns out to be a bit monotonous. But given the various options that are available, at least in the at least maybe not in the quick start, but at least I believe this Alternity is designed to have a lot of variables within their weapons choice and abilities. That I think that should actually be one of the last complaints about alternative combat. And again, as always, weapons tables, my favorite kind of thing. I guess the last time I saw a massive weapons table that was really disarming was actually Spycraft. Oh man, Spycraft is actually one very crunchy system that I really hope to be able to get into one day, and hope to be able to have someone to play with one day, because the last time we tried running Spycraft with my group and we dive head into the actual rules because there was no quick start, or there was no quick start version of that rules. Oh man, that was one heck of an experience. Yeah, it fried our brains off. Like, it was really hard to handle without having enough time to actually read through the entire thing. All right, so descriptions of all the weapons are all available side by side, step by step. We are going into armor. So again, we have the armor table and the armor pictures here. The art direction for weapons and armor equipment, at least so far, seems to be really drastically changed from what was provided earlier. Alright, so this is one major complaint that I had with the quick start, was the tools. And it seems to be there is a pretty short list, you would say, for miscellaneous tools and kits and equipment that is besides weapons and armor. And that was not provided. I think that Quickstart didn't have those. They didn't have a table of choices, but it was already included into the quick start, and therefore it was very frustrating to not being provided with descriptions of what that particular tool does or what it looks like. All right. Yeah, so like the thruster belt was provided, but I think in the quick start it was like oversimplified to the point that it was just mechanical. It was just mechanical information without any kind of description to help with any form of education. Drones. Welcome to the future. Drones are now part. I don't think you would be able to find drones in the older versions of sci-fi games, but drones as what they are now, it's acceptable for them to be part of the future. Alright, so we're going to chapter 5, combats and challenges. I haven't really got to a picture of the combat. It's alright. Yeah, not less exciting as I thought it would be, but just a guy facing off a gigantic alien is probably exciting enough for just to mention the kind of combat that this game is going to provide. Skills and skill challenges. Why is skill and skill challenges in the combat section? Okay. Okay. So the skill checks, the rules of skill checks is actually right here in chapter 5. It was not in the skills chapter, strangely enough. Failing out. Yeah, so definitely very interesting. There seems to be much more variance on the skill checks than what was provided in the quick start. Failing, I've not heard of the concept of failing out. I've not seen the concept of open-ended checks and what you call this, multiple skills. Yeah, these are new concepts to me, even from my understanding of from the quick start. So yeah, this is gonna be very interesting. Okay, and then we have the action round. So one thing that I really loved about Alternity combat system in particular is how they do initiatives and how that thing changes. So it all falls down into this initiative tracker where you start, where what you roll on your initiative skill depends where you start, and then your next turn is determined by the action that you take on your turn. So everything has a cost, and this is I don't know. It sounds so simple and it sounds so basic that I just don't understand why nobody has like I highly doubt Alternative was the first system to adopt something like this. It's probably been adopted by many other systems, and Alternative just sort of just took it along, because that really changes the flow of combat quite drastically, especially in the more traditional D&D style of combat where this turn your turn count pretty much stays the same, and it's a matter of maximizing your action economy rather than making tactical decisions on what action to take and appropriate to the situation. So I really love the initiative system in Alternity, although for newbies, especially when I was running the quick start, it was actually quite heavy on the players to because they couldn't recognize the significance of taking actions that cost less than those that cost more. And it was even worse when the characters were only able to perform like that cantrip spell, that add willpower that they always stick to. So it didn't really make that huge of a difference of what they decided to do. All right, so we have the attack rules, and this was something that I'm not sure if I saw, but I remember seeing something similar. But they have this concept of SCAR, which stands for size, cover, activity, and range, and therefore because of that, it actually affects the modifiers to your attack as per the usual skill check modifications. But yeah, I believe this table is actually provided in the quick start, and it's good to know that there's maybe not as many modifiers as they are. Although this actually did give a lot of headache when I ran the quick start, was because that we had to consult this table more often than we thought we should. Although after a while, when we established a few things like based on like things like size, which was not properly explained in the quick start, but once we established that that it was huge, then we always try to remember we have to apply that modifier to the skill check, to the ability, attack roll check, or whatever you want to call it, and we needed constant reminders for that. So that was actually that's actually part of the things that makes attack combat a little bit clunky in Alternity compared to D&D. And you're gonna hear me make a lot of comparisons with D&D because there's just so many things in Alternity that just has many parallels with D&D, but Alternity so far sometimes does things that D&D does that is a bit more thought out and a bit more nuanced that I liked, which is not hitting anything against D&D, but this is this feels to me like a natural progression of what third edition D&D could have been. And yeah, and given that the original alternative rule set was the predecessor of the D&D rule set. Yeah, you could see where things went. Also, and one of my favorite things about the alternative rule system is the damage and wound system. Uh, Uses similar logics with D&D's hit points, but trashes out hit points entirely for something that's more abstract, more I feel tangible, like makes every hit and damage matter more than say D&D dealing like 5 damage or 20 damage or 50 damage or whatever numbers that D&D uses. Something that I would definitely be exploring a bit more when I actually do a rule study of this game. Yeah, I it's and given all the pluses uh, that I see in terms of the advance in terms of the development from D&D, I was willing to put up with the downsides of it to really embrace it and say this is a really great system in comparison with D&D. All right, so is there anything else? Effects of wounds, low lethality. All right, so we have some variants here about lethality, healing and recovery, and then we have status effects. Status effects in the quick start was actually given a pretty short stint, but we seem to have the full list here now. It's only like 3 pages long. Hero points, yeah, hero points was only briefly mentioned in the quick start, but was not given a full explanation. And it's great to see the rules now. All right, running into chapter 6, running the game. And if you're looking at the art here, it's a metaphor for DM headaches, I guess, when you're trying to run the game. This is definitely going to be a chapter that I'm going to be very interested in, because first thing, because this is pretty much the DMG portion of the alternative, and them having, and this is actually where I will be looking out for things like how friendly or how much the designers actually give notes to DMs, GMs in this case, to actually be able to know where are the gears to turn for running an alternative game. It looks like we already have some things like environment. We have a section on environmental damages and dangers. That's pretty much the standard DMG stuff. Falling and impact, gravity, poisons, radiation, starvation, dehydration, objects. It seems like we have a good section of objects. Interactions. D&D, as believe it or not, even 5e included, has actual mechanics for social interactions. It's good to see that Alternity also gives the option of role, as in ROLL playing, role playing, besides the typical usual fashion of get good at being a role player. Otherwise, you can't do social interactions well. All right, and we have the attitudes that D&D also has. There's different type of attitude and the steps, the number of dice and successes you need to change attitude, and therefore when you reach different levels of attitude, what you can do with them. Interrogations. All right. So there's a particular section on interrogations. Probably involving torture at some point. It's not a system that you probably want to use as much, but it's a system that you will end up using as much, given how players play the game. So it's good to actually have some mechanic backup to run interrogations, negotiations as well, NPCs. So we have that section of the rules. Hero advancement. So this is interesting to be placed in the GM section. Hero advancement, basically how to level up, I'm guessing. Rather than in the character creation section. So I guess in some ways it's to help GMs maybe pace their distribution of XP and or rewards in the hands of the GM rather than in the hands of players to dictate that kind of thing. We are almost reaching the end, I believe. Chapter 7 is creating adventures. Yeah, creating adventures. Also a very important chapter to have, I believe, in a core rulebook that may not be often the case. Especially even more so for a generic system because you know they are not going to be able to provide you with everything to run an adventure. So might as well hand you the toolbox, go figure it out yourself and get better at things. But obviously when you're using a toolbox, the important thing I think and the most helpful thing I think for GS is being given the guiding principles of what the toolbox is intended to create, what are the design considerations to create when you're creating something, and giving and providing that guideline as long as you don't overstep those guidelines or you try to subvert those guidelines at your own risk. So it seems to have rules for ceilings, floor surfaces. This sounds like your typical dungeon making toolkit, which I'm not complaining. Definitely useful as a tool, as a set of tools. Target criteria, rewards, armor upgrades. Yeah, okay, great. Campaign design. Yeah, that's a great section to have in your section in your chapter about creating adventures. And this is where I believe they have a term called TE, technology era. TE. So different technology. So they have like TE1 is the ancient periods, prehistoric, ancient, medieval, enlightenment, and your typical T9 would be galactic era, which they say imperfect examples would be Star Trek and culture novels. I was considering of using the alternative system to run in the Expanse setting rather than using the Expanse 8 system, and here wouldn't you know it, chapter 7 TE7 says the solar era is actually where the imperfect examples would be the Expanse and Star Trek, Firefly. Oh man, Star Wars would be the stellar era, TE8. Okay, FTL method. All right, so let's show exactly what's that. Who are the heroes? Okay, and we're going to chapter 8 now. I believe that's probably the last chapter, if I'm not mistaken. Aliens and adversaries, your monster manual section. So that's all. It's all great to have a long list of ready to make adversaries and all, such as the android here. It takes up the entire page though, so that's actually going to be difficult to prep and difficult to understand. But it is what it is. Oh no, it takes about half a page. All right, Arachnoid, Behemoth, Giraffe, Energon. Wow. There was a particular alien that was introduced in the quick start, which I'm not sure if they will explain here. I don't see it yet, but this is actually something this is something I'm more interested in a monster section, is the creating adversaries, the toolbox for making your own monsters. And for a generic system like Alternity, your players don't need to know that whatever they're facing was made up or whatever that was, or it was part of the lore of the book, so to speak. So yeah, definitely great to see some templates there, and then you have some tables here and tables and tools. So yeah, I definitely appreciate being told how to fish rather than being given fish all the time. Although it's always nice to be given a fish because sometimes the prep is just not there. Prep time is not available. All right, so Appendix 1, psionics. Yeah, definitely a staple of sci-fi games, and I definitely had interest in running psionic-based games. I was quite enamored with one of the sample settings that was provided in D20 Modern, where you basically you are playing as like Men in Black psyops kind of setting where you're basically FBI but dealing with psionic related paranormal cases. So it would be great to see how Alternity does their version of that, or at least how they allow you to put an add-on of psionic related abilities and games. So let's see, we have. And speaking of that, it's actually reminding me that with the recent release of the Trinity system by Onyx Publishing, I believe, which is actually I'm guessing it's a rehash or revised version of the Aeon Trinity from White Wolf back in the days. That was actually one. That was actually, I believe that was actually my first psionics game. You know, where you play as psionics, and the whole game is basically revolving around that. And we had to deal with with humans or slash monsters called aberrants. Oh, that was some good times there. And you know, when they just recently announced and they just released Trinity and Aeon, you know, as two separate books. It definitely drew my attention, and I was thinking about getting those, but you know, I probably would when finances are permitting. Alright, so we have Appendix 2 with ships and vehicles. I don't really know why they didn't include this in the gear section. I guess because maybe that sort of disassociates the space genre with Alternative's intended use. So that's not a major complaint. But it's definitely good to keep this option in the back pocket to know that that spacefaring can be part of the game, and it's definitely going to be a section of the rules I'm going to be using if I'm going to run this in the Expanse, because spacefaring, you know, in the Expanse is pretty much about it. Well, that's at least to my knowledge of the Expanse. I know a lot of Expanse fans will probably hate me for saying that. Okay. So that's I think we are reaching the end. Binding is probably a little bit of an issue with the book. I don't know if you can see the binds. And I'm not sure how intent am I on using this book as much. Flipping probably a lot, but I would really hate to, you know, have the pages come off as sooner than I expect it to see its use. Alright, so that's pretty much it. We've reached the index section. A pretty short index, if I may say so. But I rarely use indexes because I tend to memorize, or I tend to find my way around books based on their sections and chapters, so I know what particular areas belong to which. But I never say no to an index. So yeah, so that's basically a flip through of the Alternity Core Rulebook. Lots of things to read, lots of things to really think about, lots of things to study about. But you know, as my first impression says, I really like the alternatives, what Alternity offers in relation to D&D, especially the D&D, the D20 iterations of D&D since then, and its derivatives. It's definitely if my mastery of Alternity reaches a point, you know, where I obtain some level of mastery, I would definitely love to adapt this to a more fantasy based setting. Probably difficult given the material that is provided in the in this core rulebook, but I think once you understand the main engines, and I think it can be done. And Sasquatch Games is not a total stranger. You know, Sasquatch Games is not a total stranger to making fantasy materials. I was going through their website, and I believe on their drive-through page, they are also more famous for being the creators who made the Primeval Thule campaign setting. But that was quickly adapted. I think that was intentionally adapted for Dungeons and Dragons 5e, and also I believe Pathfinder. But I would have definitely loved to see, like, if Sasquatch Games decided to make a fantasy version of the Alternity rule set in their Primeval 2 setting. Like, wow, that would really be a big draw for me. So yeah, so that's it. So I hope you enjoy my unboxing / flip through of this Alternity Core Rulebook. I apologize for my alarms. I should have shut off my volume before that. So yeah, I'll maybe post this up a version of this video on YouTube, and hopefully I can come back very soon to really crack open up this book and the rules that are contained within. So this is the Questing GM signing off for now, and I hope you consider getting the Alternity, and I hope based on what I've shown you, yeah, you know what you're gonna get. So I'll see you all, and good night. Bye.